Should a corporation with a track record of paying poverty wages and using forced labor be hailed as a human rights defender? The UN sure seems to think so, as it has allowed many companies with horrible track records to join its so-called Global Compact partnership. The Global Compact is a partnership between the UN and corporations that agree to abide by 10 key principles relating to respecting human and environmental rights. So how do companies with horrible track records become part of this partnership? And what are their interests in doing so? To answer these questions, we need to look closer at a strategy that some have called bluewashing. We can answer the question of how companies join this partnership by noting the two most basic elements of the Global Compact. First of all, the agreement to abide by the 10 key principles of the Compact is non-binding, meaning that companies are not actually required to obey the principles. Secondly, even though the Global Compact prides itself in ensuring compliance, this compliance is very limited. That's because it is actually up to companies themselves to provide their annual self-assessment report. The Global Compact then makes a decision on whether or not companies meet the 10 principles based on this report. As anyone can imagine, this assessment is not a neutral one. This explains how companies like Bayer, Nike, and Shell all manage to be active members of the Global Compact. For companies then, it's basically an easy way out. They can join the partnership, give the world the image that they care about social issues and don't violate environmental rights, when in fact they continue with the same unethical behaviors as before. This is the strategic method that some have called bluewashing. Nike provides us with a perfect example of bluewashing. It has been a member of the Global Compact since the year 2000. During that time, it has been accused of human rights abuses by various organizations, but always gave out the message that it's working on improving its corporate social responsibility. However, a recently released report by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute suggests that Nike is among the 83 multinational companies who are employing Uyghurs through forced labor at factories in China. Uyghur Muslims are an ethnic minority in China. The majority of them live in the autonomous Xinjiang region in the northwest of the country. Since 2017, over 1 million Uyghurs have been sent to so-called re-education camps, where they are reportedly forced to renounce their religion and culture, sing praises to the Chinese Communist Party, and write self-criticism essays. Between 2017 and 2019, 80,000 Uyghurs were transferred from the Xinjiang detention camps to factories across China. In January 2020, nearly 600 ethnic minority workers, including Uyghurs, were employed at Qingdao Taekwon Shoes, whose primary customer is Nike. Taekwon's Laishi factory, where these forced laborers work, produces more than 7 million pairs of shoes for Nike annually. Despite claims by the Chinese government that Uyghurs earn a salary and that their participation is voluntary, evidence from the ground suggests that they're subjected to forced labor. They reportedly receive threats and torture, are under constant surveillance, are prohibited from going back home, and live in segregated dormitories. During the day, they produce in the supply chain of Nike, and in the evening, they undergo Mandarin language classes and ideological indoctrination. Nike, together with some of the biggest corporations, is being accused of using forced labor, one of the clearest examples of human rights violations. So the question remains, how can the UN Global Compact actually ensure corporations abide by their human rights principles when it is non-binding and it doesn't check for compliance? If it were to truly want the private sector to follow its basic principles, it would obviously need to drastically rethink which corporations it includes as human and environmental rights promoters. Thank you for watching Sankara Media, and stay tuned for our weekly short docs on topics of global social justice.